Well, good day. I'm Chris McSwain from Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Bay Street Realty Group. And today I have the great pleasure of visiting with Paddi from Gateway Mortgage. And as you might suspect, she runs the Bailey team here. We're going to talk about mortgages and particularly new home construction mortgages. And Paddi loves what she does. She loves helping people, and you typically can't get a house unless you have a mortgage. So she's seen about everything there can be and has dealt with all types of different mortgages. And we're really honored to have Paddi's expertise as a part of our video today. So Paddi, welcome.
Thank you.
Tell the group a little bit about yourself and your background. I've already been bragging about you, so you go right ahead.
I've been with Gateway for 10 years, and I have a team of 4. We have 2 processors, and I have another originator that works with me. Gateway does any kind of loan program you can imagine. We certainly have construction perm, we have VA, we have South Carolina State Housing. I've been in the business for 36 years at several different banks, but I've been here almost the longest. So I totally enjoy what I do. I was telling Chris that the most intriguing part of mortgages is putting the puzzle together for the people that we work with. And sometimes the puzzle is very simple and sometimes it's quite complicated.
Well, let's take the puzzle, for example. I love that analogy. You know, so mortgage lending can be kind of scary. It's been scary for me. I've had many mortgages, and typically you're put in a room with lots of paper, asked to sign many times, and you may walk away with a pen. But Paddi's job is to make all of that simple. So tell us, when you speak of a puzzle, what are some of the pieces in the puzzle that any one of our audience members would want to be aware of?
So the main things that lenders look at is your ability to repay, meaning what does your gross monthly income look like compared to your total monthly debt, including your new house payment. We look at your ability to fund closing, your down payment, your closing costs, where are those monies going to come from. Obviously, we look at your credit score. You know, sometimes people have some challenges with their credit. We can certainly help you navigate that process and tell you the things that you can do to improve that credit score so that it maybe, if you're not a candidate right now, possibly you will be in 6 months to a year, depending on what your credit issues are.
Any other pieces that we need to be thinking about?
We've got assets, we've got total debt to income ratios, we've got credit scores, you've got your employment, your consistency of employment, how long you've been in your line of work. If you've changed fields, not necessarily changed jobs, some people think that if they change jobs that makes them ineligible for a mortgage. It does not. It does make a difference if you've changed jobs in the same line of work. Self-employed people have some challenges in that we require some additional documentation for self-employed borrowers. We have to have tax returns, not only personal, but also for their business entity, if in fact there is a separate business entity.
Notice she looked at me when she said self-employed. Well, let's talk about people who are retired or considering retirement. So what's their situation going to be like? What are the things that you want them to be thinking through before they make their play in making an offer on a piece of property?
So when we've got a retired borrower, we're going to verify their social, if they've got Social Security, we'll verify Social Security, we'll verify pension. Sometimes people that are retired have some fairly significant balances in 401ks or retirement accounts, in which case we can set up an income stream from that retirement account and use that to qualify. That's a beautiful thing.
We like that.
So if the pension and the Social Security don't quite bring us to where we want to be, we can set up that income stream from a retirement account. So those are the things that we look at with retired folks.
Now, having seen as many deals as you have come across your desk, if you had to reflect, what's probably the most common mistake or things that people don't think enough about? What would you say has been your experience?
You know, sometimes credit is a big issue. It certainly depends on the borrower. I think sometimes borrowers don't realize the detail we go into in verifying certain things. For instance, if there's a gift, we have to verify where the gift is coming from, who's giving the gift. If you have large deposits that have come into an account, then we have to verify the source of those deposits. So I think there's some detail that sometimes people get frustrated with because they just don't know.
Yeah, and Patty, I can put a big exclamation point on top of that.
Just done it.
I'm going through a new home build myself, and I've had to go through a loan approval. I'm working and self-employed, and the amount of paperwork and scrutiny that I had to go through is just amazing. So whenever you're going through this process here as a listener, don't feel like you're being singled out or scrutinized. Everybody kind of has to go through it. Maybe it's a rite of passage, I don't know. But because of, in my opinion, because of the financial downturn of 2007 and 2008, the regulations changed dramatically. The degree of scrutiny went up exponentially, so that it's not Patty's fault that you're having to go through a lot of extra rigor now compared to maybe the last time you had to go through this. It's just the way the process works today, to have basically your ducks in a row, and you have to prove that they're your ducks and that nobody else gave them to you.
That's a good analogy.
So anyway, Patty's job is to try and take as much of that stress away by helping you through the process. And if you don't mind, tell our listeners a little bit about, in general, what is the way that you interact with a customer that's been brought to you? How do you help sort of de-stress the whole process and get them through it successfully?
We've got a very user-friendly website where they can complete their application.
Okay.
And I assure them at the very beginning that I realize it's daunting and that they're probably a little apprehensive about dealing with a mortgage banker, but we're going to walk them through it by the hand. We're going to give them an itemized list of exactly the items that we need. If they have issues collecting this information, they can come into the office. We can pull their accounts up on my laptop. Mm-hmm. So I've got a group of folks that are well seasoned in mortgage lending, and we walk them through by the hand.
Well, I've dealt with big banks, and so when people hear the words mortgage banker, typically, you have the view of a three-piece suit and stuffy rooms and, a lot of glass everywhere and, a 40-story building. That's not the case here.
No.
And in the Low Country, one of the things I think you enjoy is really a more personalized experience. And you still have to go through the same required rigor in gathering financial details. That's not going to change. But what I think that anyone listening would experience here in the Low Country is more of a personalized approach. You probably get to know, Patty, your customers pretty well and their life experiences, and you understand a little bit about the home they're building and where they're building it and so forth. Could you say a little bit more about the personal experience, that personal touch maybe that you and your team provide?
Well, I think part of that relationship building is the fact that I've been in Beaufort for 36, 37 years. I've been doing mortgages for 36, 37 years. I know the attorneys, I know many of the realtors, they know me. So I can facilitate to some degree these interactions that go on throughout the mortgage process. Mm-hmm. And I've got a processor that's well seasoned. She deals with them in a very professional way. And we all know the details of what's going on here. So we try to assure people that we're not going to ask you for anything that you can't produce.
Gotcha.
And if you have difficulty producing it, call us and let us walk you through what that might look like, okay. what document we actually need, where you can pull it from. But I think the relationships that I have with the realtors and the other lenders, sometimes I have to refer loans to other lenders for any number of reasons, and the attorneys is huge when you're dealing with folks that are coming in from a different area.
Okay. Well, let's talk about loan types. There's a lot of new construction that's occurring in this area. There's a lot of resales. There's all different types of loans. Patty, if I could ask you, first speak in general about the differences that you've experienced in these different loan products that are oriented to each one of these different scenarios of home ownership type. And then, at your discretion, comment about the products that you offer.
A lot depends on, what a borrower's need. Well, everything depends on what a borrower's needs are. So we have everything from low to moderate income loans that have down payment assistance all the way to construction perm loans for $1 million houses. So, and there's a lot in between, as you can imagine. We do South Carolina State Housing, we do VA, we do FHA. So it just depends on what the needs of our borrowers are. We've got some amazing construction perm products, one-time close, two-time close. So there's not much that we don't have on our menu.
Well, I'm going to go just a little bit further in this new home construction subset of what our viewers may represent. So for some of those companies, particularly the national builders, they're vertically integrated. They brought a lot of mortgage and loan practices and products inside of their offering. Can you speak to what those sort of products might look like, and some of the trade-offs that a home purchaser would want to consider between one product or another related to a mortgage product from a large builder versus a mortgage product from a builder that does not necessarily offer that type of a program?
And that's where my niche is. I mean, the big builders have their own mortgage companies typically, and 9 times out of 10, that home buyer is going to go through that lender.
Okay.
My niche is more the custom home scenario, or somebody that's buying a lot outside of a planned unit development, so to speak. So the products there are going to be a one-time close versus a two-time close. Are you doing a primary residential property, or are you doing a second home? And there's some differentiation as far as what program I can go with relative to one-time close or two-time close. But the way those work is that you have a borrower that's dealing directly with the builder. Mm-hmm. They have a construction contract. They either own a lot or they're buying a lot at closing. Plans, specs, construction contract, those are the kind of items that we need when we're dealing with a construction perm scenario. And we do a fair number of construction perms, and so we're affiliated with several of the builders. And there are some of the bigger builders that do utilize lenders like me. Now, some have their own mortgage entity, but there are some that don't, and so we certainly deal with those. And the other question is the builder going to build a house and you're going to buy the finished product, or are you going to be required to provide the construction funding to give draws to the builder throughout the construction process? So that's a big question.
Huge difference in the answer to that question.
Correct.
Now, without naming names, there's some large builders that are in the northern part of Beaufort and Jasper counties that are offering a lot of programs. What are some of the things that you're seeing them offer in their mortgage products as a way of enticing buyers to their developments?
The big builders are going to provide fairly significant credits to the borrower. And those are incorporated throughout their pricing model. So typically a borrower is going to want to go with that lender that's affiliated with the Pulte, the D.R. Hortons, the Mungo, those sorts of entities. And they make it certainly well worth their while to stay with those lenders. So those are not the ones that I usually get involved in simply because they do provide those credits. I'm usually more of a custom home scenario.
Oh, and that's perfect. There's nothing wrong with either. No. I appreciate you just sort of being agnostic to any one particular product and helping educate our viewers.
Well, obviously, if a borrower is getting a sizable credit, I'm going to encourage them to go with that lender. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't make any sense for them not to take advantage of that.
Well, you've been in the business for, as you said, a fairly long time.
Yep.
It's hard to be excited about the same thing for that long. So I'm just going to ask a hard question. What are you really excited about now?
I'm always excited about taking somebody from the pre-qualification stage all the way to closing, and then being happy enough at the end that they'll say, I'm going to send somebody else to you. Mm-hmm. And I'm also, whenever they comment on my team and how they were so helpful. So that's kind of the joy that we get. And again, part of what I love about it is putting the puzzle together. So for whatever kind of builder or whatever kind of borrower I'm dealing with, I love figuring out how to make it work. Sometimes it's very, very simple, and sometimes it's rather complicated. And so that's what we pride ourselves on, is being able to make a loan work that maybe somebody else wouldn't take the time.
Mm-hmm. So how do you measure success?
Um,
referrals would probably be a big part of it.
well, and that's where I get 90% of my business, either referrals from realtors like you, or from attorneys, or from people that I've done business with in the past. So that's probably the way I measure success. Obviously, the number of loans I close is certainly a measure of success, but also when I get a referral from someone that I've done business with in the past, either they come back to me or they send somebody to me. That's a huge pat on the back.
Well, I want to end on a huge positive. So you think about, and Patty did not know I'm going to ask this question. So think about one of your biggest success stories with a customer. Tell us a little bit about the situation, whatever action you had to take to help them be successful, and how did it turn out?
Probably when you have a borrower come in and you realize that there are going to have to be some significant things that are going to have to take place in order for this loan to close. Like, for instance, they're selling a house and they've got some debts that are going to need to be paid off prior to them qualifying. And you're trying to put all those pieces together and verify those payoffs and make the numbers work so that they do qualify. Pay this off or pay that off, or no, that's when you bring somebody to a point of thinking they're not going to be able to do it, and travel the path, and it happens, and they get into a home. And sometimes it gets rather complicated.
I can imagine.
It does.
But what a great sense of joy and pride for the team to knowing that you've helped people overcome what was previously thought to be unachievable, and to come into the joy of home ownership, which is, the American dream.
It is. And to have a borrower that realizes at the end, they said, thank you for sticking with me and for going down that path and putting that puzzle together.
So what are we saying? We're going to end with come to Gateway Mortgage, where we help you realize the American dream.
Exactly.
Thank you, Patty, very much for your time. Great job. And
thank you, Chris.
We'll talk to you again soon.